right, we have so far Mark on and Paul. Mark, how are you? Paul, how are you? We can put, oh, Mark Wolf is on, very good. Welcome, everybody.
Is that too much noise?
No. Thank you for everybody spending the time. Thanks for coming on a little bit early. Coming early is high class character. If anybody has any questions before we start, you can throw a chat in there. This is a webinar format, so we will definitely open the mics later on. But basically in the beginning, Paul and I are going to be doing pretty much a lecture, class, just a session. And then we are going to hope that it will be interactive as we're going through. So, but if anybody, there's a chat box, a chat button on the bottom. Any questions, you can definitely utilize that chat, or there's also a question and answer thing. Little box at the bottom.
So between the desktop and the camera.
I know we have to look at the camera, but the computer's lower. So if you see us looking down, it's because we're looking at the screen, but the camera's higher, so you guys have a better. But we will be presenting. Today is not going to be a PowerPoint like we did last week. Today is going to be, we're going to be utilizing a flip chart paper and some markers. But hopefully you do have a pen and paper that you could take notes on, and I will send everybody, if you're interested, the recording of our session today after. So we have a couple more minutes. We'll allow more people coming in. Good. We hope everybody is safe, happy, and healthy. Look, 1, 2, 3, 3 months. Get it right in the mark. Great. Thank you for everybody joining on. See a lot of familiar names coming up. Good, and we're about 10:59. We will officially get started at 11:02.
Got the Marucci's in there. Hello, guys. Our newest UMAC yellow belts.
Are they? Oh, nice.
Yeah. Dad graduated at the retreat. Mom just graduated last Friday.
Wow, virtually. Good. All right, so like we said, this format is a webinar format where a lot of times, sometimes there's a lot of Zoom meetings going on, right? Where you're actually seeing everybody's faces. This is a little bit of a different format. It's a webinar, which basically means that we're going to be doing the teaching or the lecturing and the talking. It's hardly confusing looking at the camera and not at the computer, but looking at doing the teaching and the lecturing and so on, and sharing our content and the knowledge that we have for all of you. But there is interaction. Interaction during it is going to be via chat, or if you have any questions, there's some boxes on the bottom. If you go down, even through your phone, if you're on your phone, you can do this as well. That you question and answer, or you can do a chat. We'll respond while one of us is speaking. The other one will be able to respond. Okay. So just everybody is aware of that. So all right, we're going to give another 1 to 2 minutes. In the meantime, what we're going to ask is that in Empowered Mastery, we really do like to focus on the positive. And every single time we start a coaching session or a seminar or everything, we always ask, what's the positive? We ask for a personal positive, something that's happened in your personal life, something that's happened professionally, and then something that's happened regarding your health, because those are 3 areas that are very important and that we do want to pay a lot of attention to. Eric Harvey just got on our call. We had a coaching session yesterday, so he knows this very well. But so right now, what we would like everybody, if you take the opportunity, to, for those who attended our session last week, we'll refer to some of the stuff that we did last week. I am going to do a very quick review. And then we're going to have Paul, otherwise known as Grandmaster Melella, take over. For those who do not know me, my name is Chris Berlow, Grandmaster Chris Berlow. We both are United Martial Arts Center's founders, and we are also Empowered Mastery founders. So we've been finding a lot of stuff lately, I guess. But we are here really on the front of, I guess, both, right? Grandmaster and Chris Paul. It really depends on how you know us. But whether it's in the martial arts schools or Empowered Mastery, we always ask, what's the positive? So what I'd like you all to do is right now in that little chat box, just while we're waiting for everybody else to join in, please write down one positive that has happened in the last 7 days in your life. It could be personal, could be professional, could be regarding your health, it doesn't matter. But what is one positive that has happened? Okay, so go ahead. Let's see who's first. Put it in there. Just booked 2-week trial. Good job. That makes me really happy. That's one of my my rock stars at the Taekwondo school. Good job there, Sarah. What else? Give me some positives, everybody. It does not have to be big. It doesn't have to be massive. And especially with all that's happening right now. We got a yellow belt in there. With all that's happening right now in this world, and there is a lot of negativity everywhere. We all have to agree that watching the news is kind of not the most positive experience, right? And there's a lot of uncertainty on negativity, and it's really important that we control our minds and train ourselves to be able to find the positive, even though when things may seem a little bit dark. That we have to find the light when things are looking a little bit dark. So we got some positives coming through, so we appreciate that. Thank you for that. My husband just got home from the hospital after fighting. Wow, good job, right? Working with the Chris on the positives. I've been able to review records and calendars, catch up. So this is great. And you know what? We love seeing it, but more importantly, this is all for you, right? Because again, it's shifting your mind to find those positives. All right, we're going to get started. Thank you for that, everybody. And we're going to continue this chat box going on. So hopefully you guys have any questions or anything, let us know all the way through. First thing we're going to do is review what we did last week, right? Which basically we started off talking about what we call the success formula. The success formula, you want me to write? Yep. Success formula is basically everything starts with our thoughts, right? So what we're thinking about, the thoughts that we have is going to create a certain feeling within us, right? So if we're thinking positive, we're going to start to what? Feel positive, right? And because of the way we're feeling, it's going to trigger a positive action. So your thoughts will determine how you feel, right? Oh, I put that wrong. Feelings. Your feelings will cause an action. And those actions that you produce, those actions are going to produce certain results. Now, we didn't make this up. We've learned this many years ago, but it is something that is so unbelievably true and factual that it's and powerful. Simple but powerful. That's kind of like what I like. I like things that are simple, easy to understand, but really, really impactful. But if you think about the reality is your thoughts. You have certain thoughts about certain things in your life. You have thoughts about what's happening in this circumstance. You have thoughts of what's happening. Like we have 60,000 thoughts a day, right? And our thoughts, and for some of us may have more, right? But your thoughts are going to cause a certain feeling. If you are feeling something, well, how am I going to do this? Or this is bad, or this one, that's going to cause a disempowering feeling within you. If your thoughts are positive, right? It's the same thing as a lot of people, they look at things as problems, or you look at them as challenges, right? That's going to trigger a certain emotion. When there's a problem, you kind of want to step away, for me at least, right? But when there's a challenge, you kind of want to run through it, right? So it's the same thing. Your thoughts, positive thoughts are going to trigger a positive feeling, which is going to initiate positive actions. And then those actions are going to produce the results. So what it really comes down to, if anybody here wants to change the results in their life, in whatever area of life, it doesn't really matter. You have to first start, and maybe change colors. You have to first start by changing your thoughts. And that is why the first thing that we ask you is to post a positive, right? Because who knows where your thoughts were before you started. A lot of people love to complain. I would say, raise your hand if you agree, but I can't see you right now. But a lot of people love to complain, right? And if you constantly are complaining, like even when before you're coming in, oh, I got to come on this webinar, whatever it is, right? What were you thinking about it, right? That's going to create a certain feeling, your actions, and then ultimately your results. If you want to change the results in any area of life, you have to first start by changing your thoughts, okay? Again, while you're coming on to this webinar, we want to make sure, that's why we ask you to do the positive, that your thoughts are in the right place and you're more able and receptive to understand and learn what we have to offer. Now, last week during our session, again, I'm going to do a very, very quick review to catch up anybody who was not able to attend last week. First thing we talked about, these are like 8 things that you should do to keep your mindset right during this corona circumstance, right? And the first one was, we said is ask very often, what's the positive, right? Which basically is alignment with what we just said. And if you have children at home or spouses or just any family members or friends that are complaining a lot, right? First thing you should do is ask them, stop them in their tracks and say, well, what's the positive? And make them search for that positive, because you can't see the negative and the positive at the same time, right? So you have to work hard diligently to find the positive. So ask often, what's the positive? The next thing is that you make sure that you take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, which means you should eat healthy. You should exercise. You should practice your meditation training. Whatever you need to do, you need to block out time to improve your health so you have the energy that you can help those that are close to you and accomplish the things that you want to set out to do. The third thing, and I have all this, if you leave a message or a chat box, I'll send you the PowerPoint from last week. We're not doing PowerPoint this week. Is limit the media influx. If you inundate yourself with the news, now we have to be aware and informed, but if you inundate, then you're going to go into a negative state because you're constantly, right, thinking about all the things that are going wrong because it's right in your face, and that's going to produce a different feeling, right, which is more or less disempowering, like I can't believe this, right? But we have to be aware so we can communicate for those we have to, but you just have to take it in blocks. Don't inundate yourself and immerse yourself into that negativity, right? Fourth thing is that you continue to plan your day, right? That you literally assign tasks and time block your day. Now, when you have a typical work day, right, when we're living our normal lives, we always recommend that you time block. Because when you time block and you put a certain task to a time, as if you're making an appointment with a client or somebody else, you're making an appointment with yourself, you really get things done. You become productive. If it goes on the calendar, it becomes real. So really be diligent with your calendar and plan your day. And if you have children, plan their day, right? Otherwise, your day is going to run you and you don't run the day. You have to own the day, all right? And the last thing, and that's what I think is that everybody really has to take to heart, is that you take advantage of this time that we will probably never get an experience like this in our lives, but take advantage of the extra time that you have to improve yourself personally and professionally or health. So you leave this corona circumstance a better person, more fit, more healthy, more knowledgeable, right? That you utilize this gift of time that we have. And if you say, I don't have any more time, well, the fact is you're not commuting. So you definitely have the time, right? If you take even the time that you would be commuting and you put it in and you utilize that for your personal development, you're already ahead of the game. So we have to maximize that time for sure. Very, 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 very important. I think everybody should come out of this better, right? We should all come out of this better. And the second thing is surround yourself with more uplifting people. I'm so grateful that we are so grateful that everybody here is on our presentation today because, you know, it is going to be uplifting. It is going to be empowering, right? Empowered mastery, right? It is going to be something that's going to get you thinking more positively at a better level, giving yourself more of an introspective understanding of how you're thinking and what you're feeling, and hopefully trigger some actions which will give you some new results, right? But be around people, watch funny things. My wife and I were last night, we would watch maybe like 3-4 minutes of the news. And then we watch a comedy. We've been watching like a comedy because I'm usually not home at night, but we've been watching like a funny movie. I don't remember what we watched last night. It must have not been that good. but something that's uplifting and more funny and enjoyable, because you want to leave and go to sleep on a positive note. But if you're watching the news right before you go to sleep, it's not so good. So do things to uplift. Read a book. Read a book that excites you, that engages you, right? Something out of the norm. I don't know. And the next thing is, you know, this is, as I alluded to this last week, this is what I call the corona circumstance. I don't personally call it a pandemic. I don't call it a crisis, and I know that's what it is, right? But I call it a circumstance. And the reason why I call it a circumstance, because this is a circumstance that is way beyond my control. It's way beyond your control. There's nothing we can do. We didn't cause it. We didn't initiate it, right? I have some philosophical things in my mind, but I'm not going to go there. But really, it's beyond our control. All we can do is navigate through the circumstance. So if there are certain challenges I'm facing, I'm not taking it personal because it's a circumstance beyond my control, right? If I caused it, then I would take it personal. Maybe you have a right to be a little upset. But here, we just have to navigate, stay positive, and do the best we can. And the last thing, which is really relevant to what Grandmaster Melella is going to go into right now, is just to be really acutely aware of your thoughts, of what you're thinking. Because a good friend of us, some of you may know, Master Joe Bedini, he said to us many, many years ago, because what gets measured gets managed. And that was really relevant when it comes to finances, right? But it's also really, really relevant, which most people don't know, when it comes to your thoughts. If you could take a measurement of your thoughts and what you're thinking, then you could consciously shift your thoughts and change it at a moment's notice. But if you're not aware of your thoughts, of what you're thinking, you can't change it. So what gets measured gets managed, and by you, and hopefully out of our session today, and after our session today, that you will be more aware of what you're thinking, which ultimately will determine how you're feeling, will trigger some actions, and produce you the results. And we have a golden opportunity to improve results in the areas of our lives that we can control. Because there's things that we can't control, but the ones that we can, we have to improve. All right? And on that note, that's my little recap from last week. I want to introduce Grandmaster Paul Melella. He's going to take you through. I'm going to go on the computer and answer any questions or any comments that you guys may have. So thank you.
All right, virtual clap for Grandmaster Berlow, Chris, for those how you know him. So first I want to say thank you for taking the time to be here. We do believe that anyone invests time, energy, and money into their personal, professional growth is what we feel is the uncommon club. You're in the top 1 to 5%. There are a lot of people out there that are just choosing to watch TV, choosing to drink alcohol every day, choosing to veg, and they have this mindset that this is like a Corona vacation. And that's not what we're thinking. That's not how we're responding or acting, and not how our students or clients are responding or acting. We want to be able to come out of this a way better person and individual, and hopefully parent, leader, professional for those that we serve, love, and impact. So this is obviously that success formula that we introduced. A lot of our clients that are out there, they've seen and heard many of this content before. So this is all great repetition and a great reinforcement on our philosophy and lifestyle of thinking and coaching. So one of the very first things that, I don't know about a lot of you out there, but when this all started, I would like to say March 15th or 16th, I'm going to be, and I have been totally transparent that I was not completely Mr. Positive like my best friend and partner, Grandmaster Berlow. I was not. I was totally what I call clouded, and I do something called drift. And when we get clouded, you can't see. And when you can't see, you drift. And then what happens is we drift to what I call the dark side. Some of us may go there more often than not. Some of us say that they don't, which I think that there's a universal law of polarity. There's good, there's bad, there's negative, positive. In the martial arts, we say and yang. So for those who say they don't ever potentially go there, I think that we have to be completely honest with ourselves, and we might temporarily go there. It's like a hot burning stove. They may touch it to test it, but you don't keep your hand on there and get burnt. I was one of the people that was staying there, living there. And I was what I call, like most, the number one thing that we have to focus in on, like Chris said earlier, is you and I have to become aware. What does that mean? I believe there's two forms of awareness. There's unconscious awareness and there's conscious awareness. What do I mean by unconscious awareness? Do you realize that most people live their life in what I believe is unconscious awareness? It's almost like if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, right? There's Neo who wakes up out of the Matrix, right? They're just living their lives with previous ways of thinking. And that could be based on how they were brought up, what they heard, what they saw, what they were told by their parents, grandparents, the media, the news, the teachers, the community they grew up in. And they're just kind of like living their life and unconsciously, not super aware and in tune in how they're thinking, right? And not that it's right or wrong, but for the first 20 some odd years of my life, I was living in an unconscious awareness. And sometimes in my life, still to this day at 45, 46, I tend to drift unconsciously, and I'm not currently aware of how I'm thinking, right? And what ends up happening is that type of unconscious awareness is literally like hardwired into our subconscious mind. You know, they're patterns of behavior that we're really not aware about. It's like automatic without thought, you know? And so I'm sure some of you can pick up on certain things that maybe you're doing at home or doing that you're not aware about, that probably things that you saw your parents do or your grandparents do or a friend, and it's just unconscious, right? So that's what I mean by being aware. There's unconscious and there's conscious. So when we're challenged, like Chris and I, when we have our clients, we challenge them. We ask a lot of questions to challenge their thoughts, to challenge their beliefs, to challenge their behavior, okay? And a lot of people don't like to be challenged, but when you do that and you're really consciously choosing and taking some time to really think how the fuck you're thinking around this, then that's what I call conscious awareness, right? A couple weeks ago, I was living at an unconscious awareness. I was not aware, and then I had to stop. And so what happens? We end up becoming challenged, and we wake the fuck up. Kind of like Neo did in the movie The Matrix. He woke up out of the Matrix, and he's now in the real world, right? And now he's conscious of how he's thinking. He's conscious of his behaviors. And so I'm challenging all of you, whether you like to go there or not, but I'm challenging you to be consciously aware of how you're thinking. This could be relative to this COVID experience, could be relative to your business, your income, your health, relationships. I don't care where you put your focus, but we have to focus in on becoming aware. So Chris had shared with all of us last week, what are your thoughts? So when you are aware, what are your thoughts? Okay? And now a lot of us, honestly, we're going to have either negative or positive thoughts. All right? And we're going to maybe apply this kind of philosophy to this COVID circumstance. Remember, the language that we're using right now is circumstance or experience. On the news, what are they putting on the news? What
Crisis.
Crisis, right? COVID crisis. What's another word they use?
Crisis. They're not using circumstance.
Not users. So language is important.
Yeah.
So I want everyone right now, and what we're going to do is
Pandemic.
Pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
So I'm going to ask the audience, and we have around 20 some odd people that are here. I would like one person, we're going to open up, and we're not going to be able to see you, okay? But what I like I want a group share, a partner share. I want one of you guys or gals in the audience that's watching, I want you to be completely honest and truthful, okay? If you were aware, and right now we're conscious awareness, not unconscious, or maybe it was you're now identifying what you were thinking, and what were some of the thoughts that you had around this situation? And maybe you could relate it to your business, your family, your income, the future, your investments. I don't care where you put it, but around this situation that we're experiencing, I'd like someone to kind of write down and let Christian know.
Put it in the chat box.
And we'll open up your mic.
Open up your mic.
And you could share, right? Please and thank you. What are some of your current thoughts around this? Now, again, when we are aware, a lot of us that were coaching students or clients there, they might be already wired and training to think of the positive, right? That's what eventually we do, but we got to be honest with ourselves. If there was a thought that was there, and a lot of men, totally transparent, I don't express it. I keep it inside. I let it build up, and I'll get into that in a second, right? But what we have to do is be consciously aware of how we're thinking around this, right?
Well, I didn't get any response, so we'll have to go through what you were thinking.
All right, so for example, around this, I was saying.
Oh, we got one.
Who we got?
It says, can I make it?
All right, great. Can I make it? Okay. What else? What else?
Let the condition controlling you instead of controlling me. Instead of me controlling it.
Repeat that.
let the condition, hold on a second, move it. Let the situation control you instead of you controlling.
So is that a negative or positive? I guess what I want to get at is, if we were completely honest and transparent here, and we were totally aware, what are some of the potential negative thoughts that you were having? You know, I was basically saying, holy shit, how am I going to pay my mortgages on my commercial property?
All right. Will my world ever be the same
Thank
again?
you. Will my world
Hopeful
ever be same?
hopeful for new opportunity, but scared for many suffering.
Scared for others.
Right. And can I do what is right to have the kids make it?
Can I do what is right
And have the kids make it through?
for kids? Okay, all great questions. Okay, all great questions. Now, what ends up happening is that these, based on what Chris shared earlier, thoughts lead to what? Feelings. Okay, and what ends up happening is those thoughts lead to negative feelings. Okay, so if I do the same exercise, okay, and then I'm consciously aware, I challenge myself and really dive deep, okay, and then for this purpose, we're identifying all, I know we don't want to go there, but I'm identifying the negative first. And we're gonna shift later in another webinar, another seminar on the positive. We got to start here first, okay?
Another negative. Was this man made?
Okay. What is this man made? I mean, that could, you know, stack a whole.
Thank you, Mark. That's a whole, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. I could talk to anyone on the sidebar, any of that, but anyway. But now, all of a sudden what we do is if we're aware of those thoughts, these thoughts identify, that will then trigger, as I call it, they trigger, thank you, they trigger emotions, okay? Now, if you had to think about those thoughts right now, everyone, if you were really honest and aware, consciously aware, and you wrote down all the thoughts that you're having, all the thoughts around how it was made, if you're gonna be an effective leader for your kids, where your money, if you're gonna gain your money back, will my business open back up? You know, when's this thing gonna end? Will it ever end? Will it ever go back to quote normal? And we could go ahead and, if you're honest and you're not full of shit, you're gonna have those thoughts, okay? And now all of a sudden, if you really put energy in thoughts and are consciously aware of those thoughts, then identify the negative emotions that stirs in your body, okay? Write them down. And those out there, you can type them in the chat right now. Just write down some negative emotions that you experience based on what those thoughts are doing to your body, okay? Grandmaster Kim, he says is that, you know, COVID and cancer, it loves
Stay back a little bit
fear,
because of
okay? It loves anxiety. It loves doubt. It loves anger.
Anxiety.
Yup. What do we got there?
Anxiety.
Anxiety. What else?
See the screen keeps plugging in. Depression.
Depression.
Coming in and out. Headaches.
Headaches. Yeah, that causes the headache, right? That's the result that you get, right? What else? Get one more for me, please and thank you.
Feeling stuck, limited.
Limited? All right. Thank you. Through our experience coaching thousands of clients.
Uncertain.
Uncertainty. Good.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge that I've been, you know.
Uncertainty. Right?
Indecision.
Indecision. Good. Great job. So now in our book, we identified FAD. Okay? Basically, it stands for fear, anxiety, and doubt. Right? Fear, anxiety, and doubt. And fear is probably the number one negative emotion that many of us experience. Okay? Many of us experience, in some level or some form, we're going to be stuck with the negative emotion of fear. Now, And eventually I'll get into this. We're either going to get burned by the fire of the flames of fear, or you and I, like myself, I use fear to fuel my burning desire. And we're going to get into that later on, okay? So now what ends up happening is you are now becoming more what I call consciously aware, not unconsciously aware, of how you're thinking and how you're feeling around this particular circumstance. And it can also be applied to any area of your life. Now, here's an exercise that I do with my clients. And we're sharing this because this is what I had to do 4 or 5 weeks ago. I had to literally coach myself through this, obviously with the help of my partner and best friend. I also share the story of my mother as I'm FaceTiming her, not as a male, right? I would like to say, you know, I never expressed for the most part. Now I'm learning to express a little bit more on how I'm thinking and feeling, but I wasn't. And she saw my face on FaceTime and she calls me out with a text. And some of you had heard this story before. I've been sharing it, being very open and transparent, that she basically called me out and said, like what I said, wake the fuck up. Wake up. Get up and rise. Okay, that's kind of what I get in my head, right? You're a Melella. Step up. And what she did say, it's a trigger for me, and we're going to use this and later on, is like, you are Grandmaster fucking Melella. And that resonated with me, right? And what I'm leading that into is that the same process, based on your thoughts, your feelings, then you will identify what I call the voices, okay? Now, you and I believe, all of us have at least 2 voices in your head. There's a negative voice and there's a positive voice. And for anyone in our audience, when we speak, keynote speak, or doing a session like this, any one of you that go, I don't got that. I don't got 2 voices in my head. Who the hell is this guy with slick back hair and tattoos and thinking that he's Grandmaster or whoever, thinking I got 2 voices in my head? That's the little voice that I'm talking about. The one that just told you that you don't, right? If you're like me, I have way more than 2 voices in my head. So what I have my clients do, and I learned this through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is to learn how to break down and identify the voices, okay? So we want to identify them. And this is a strategy that I use still to this day. Now, not to get in deep to this conversation or this exercise, but I want you to understand that you have 2 voices, at least 2. And I have a lot of my clients, and I see some of them that are even on there, right? I have them do at least 3 negative and 3 positive, right? Now imagine this. Now I have several, and those who have heard me speak before, I share these, you know, I have multiple negative voices that I all identify with. But when I was aware a couple of weeks back, and I consciously was aware, I had what I call, everyone knows, most people know I'm a Star Wars geek. I had Darth Paul, like Darth Vader and Darth Maul. He was the guy with the red paint in the episode 1, right? 1 or 2. Darth Paul. He's very dark, angry, and all these emotions that we wrote down, that's where he lives. And he was thinking, what's going to happen to our businesses that for 25 years I've been dedicating my life, every cent that I've ever earned went back into the businesses, back into the real estate, built it up where it was a machine working, and now it feels like I'm going to start all from scratch. How am I going to buy the home that we're going to buy after I just sold my house on March 17th, right? All these thoughts were coming up. But who was talking to me? Darth Paul. He was speaking out of frustration. He was speaking out of anger. He was speaking out of fear, anxiety, and doubt, and being limited. And it wasn't until I got called out by my own mother where I had to tap into my inner Grandmaster, excuse my French, fucking Melella. I curse when I'm coaching as Coach Paul, never Grandmaster Melella in martial arts. He'll never curse.
I
But
don't curse as Coach Chris or Grandmaster Berlow.
that's why we're opposite.
I hold myself to a little higher.
Some of you may or may not like my style. It's not, it's okay. But that resonates with me. When I had to tap into that voice, then all of a sudden that voice began having different thoughts, different emotions, and different, what we're going to get into, paradigms. Now, Chris gave an assignment last week is to identify those negative thoughts. I'm expanding on this process right now. So the next thing I want you to do is once we identify negative thoughts, negative feelings, I want you to then come up with a negative voice and who was she or who was he that was speaking to you. Now, when I think of Darth Paul, I name him because I give him an insignificant name. He's dark, he's angry, he's evil. He does not resonate with me. I give him zero credibility. Those who ever heard my story, I have someone called Easy Target Paul, who's 7 years old, that was bullied, has zero self-confidence. I have Second Best Paul, who's around 11 or 12 years old, who always thought that he wasn't good enough as a martial art athlete and was like looked down by his coach and his instructor. I have many of them. If I've ever coached you before, you heard my story. But when I have my clients identify a negative voice, now all of a sudden you give them an insignificant name, you give them zero credibility, and if someone that has zero credibility that you don't respect, that you don't appreciate, that you don't like, was speaking to you negatively and making you feel bad, would you listen to him or her? I don't think so. I don't think so. If a little 7-year-old boy walked in here, has zero self-confidence, Easy Target Paul, and started telling me, you can't do it, you're gonna fail out of your business, you'll never make it, find another job, find another career, I would what? Ignore him, laugh at him, smack him on his ass and send him on his way? But guess what? When we're at a level of unconscious awareness, we're allowing that person, that thought, and those emotions dictate our result and action, like what Chris said earlier. So those thoughts and emotions will either cause us to have inaction, no action whatsoever, and we're paralyzed, or it's going to inspire us into action. Or even if you take action and you're having negative thought and negative emotions, and you're allowing those negative voices dictate, those actions are not going to be the right action to take. Your result is not going to be the same. So here's what we're doing. We're getting consciously aware how you're thinking around this situation. What are your thoughts? What are the feelings you're experiencing? Now what I want you to do is identify a voice that you can make fun of. If you can picture this enemy, if I was fighting someone that's invisible and I'm getting punched and kicked and headbutted and whatever, I can't fight him or her. But I can now see Darth Paul. I can visualize Easy Target Paul, Second Best Paul. And now I know how to combat them. So what I'd like you to do is type in the box right now one negative voice that you've identified throughout your life that maybe was speaking to you over the past couple of weeks.
And they have to name it, right?
Name it.
They're going to name
and
it.
if you're going to name it, you got to give it an insignificant name that loses credibility. Okay? That if you saw them, you'd laugh at them, not listen to him or her. Right? If it was the little, wise ass Paul or Second Best Paul, I'd kick him on in his ass and send him on his way. I wouldn't ignore it. But when we're unconsciously aware, we actually allow those voices dictate how we think, how we feel, and how we act or don't act. So let's type some in the box. Who do we have? And maybe we can open up their mic and let them share. Please and thank you.
All right, come on, everybody. Let's get some voices.
I saw Kevin McDonough in there anyway. He's already did this exercise a couple weeks back. So you could share if I know you're out there doing this exercise.
Not enough, Kev.
Okay, not enough, Kev. Can we open up the mic for Kevin, please?
All right, hold on. Kevin, you're live.
How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Not enough Kev's not here today.
That's because he's been coaching with me for the past couple of months. But if you had to share to the people that are listening, Kev, and you had some experience with this exercise, why don't you go back and then you could use your story to inspire some people about not enough Kev, how he was created, and how potentially he could kind of creep in and maybe dictate you if you're not consciously aware. If you would please share.
Sure. He comes about when fear, anxiety, doubt, all those things creep in. Once I open the door, then that voice comes in, and no matter what I do, because I'm looking at the negative as opposed to the positive, I tend to drift towards that. And then all the other negative emotions start to fill my head. And this morning, I usually get one good thing out of something like this. So what I got this morning was the awareness piece of it, which Paul and I are working on now anyway. But that awareness is so key, not just in the morning when I'm meditating or in the evening when I'm meditating or when I'm writing it down, but all day long to have little reminders of that, because without it, I tend to drift to that, because for so many years I created that super highway that drifts towards that. And, I tend to like to make people, I like people to like me. I'm a people pleaser in that sense. And so this person comes out, and a lot of times I will compromise my own positive emotions for other people's approval. And so that's just one of them that comes out. But it all comes out from one thing.
Give Kevin a virtual clap, or give a little comment in the box, please.
It could even, I don't know how to do it, but yes.
Or just give a little reinforcements. Thank you for sharing, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, awesome. Now Kevin, like most, is using this philosophy, this lifestyle, to create a higher level of awareness. Now he's being consciously aware of that voice. We gave him a negative voice. You got to identify who that is that's speaking to him, right? So now what ends up happening is a combination of these negative thoughts, these negative feelings, will then generate and create what we call a paradigm. But it's not a paradigm, it's a paralyzing paradigm. When you think of paralyzed, you can't move, you can't function, you can't take action. Now, those who ever read our book or potentially will, and this is in our book, talks about paradigms, and I'm going to read this for you, okay? Another word for emotional scars or paralyzing paradigms, and we got to first understand a paradigm is a set of beliefs and values that determines the way a person views his or her reality, okay? So they control all of our behavior, which turns and propels our results. So we have to understand that these paradigms are formed based upon what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and then what we do is we create like what I call paralyzing paradigm. Paralyzing paradigm could, based on the thoughts and feelings, we could turn around and say, COVID-19 is going to crush our industry. Okay? Never will we be able to make up student base, income, and growth
Stability.
or stability after this. Okay? How the fuck am I going to do this and win? Okay? What happens is we create a paralyzing paradigm. It's almost like a statement based on the thoughts, based on the feelings, based on who's speaking to us. Darth Paul was speaking, and all of a sudden we begin to what? What I call negatively stack. We negatively stack one thought on top of another. What I call concerned, because we're concerned, compounding. Now, if you're not writing or typing, I want you to write that down. We're going to then begin to stack based upon concerned compounding. We compound and compound and compound a paralyzing paradigm on a paralyzing paradigm on a paralyzing paradigm on a paralyzing paradigm until we create what I call our story. Okay? So what happens is we then create this story that we're either telling ourselves, we're telling our family, we're telling our friends, and we're telling this story, and it hasn't even happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. We're creating this story that's in our imagination, allowing what we call, Kevin alluded to it, what I call drifting. And we drift and we create this story in our minds because we're unconscious of how we were thinking, who was speaking to us, and we were allowing those stories to compound. And we compound after compound and compound. And that is going to paralyze you. That's why a lot of people are calling this the COVID vacation. They're drinking every day, popping pills probably, right? Not exercising. That's what they're doing because they're fearful based on the stories that they say. So here's an assignment for everyone in here. So far we've identified thoughts. We've identified feelings. We've identified a negative voice that's talking to us. And we're going to then identify a paralyzing paradigm. It's a statement. Now, I'll bet that you had 1, 2, or 3 paralyzing paradigms or statements or questions that then creates a story. Okay? So what do we have? We have a thought. We have a feeling. This creates a paradigm, which is a paralyzing paradigm, and that will then compound. Okay? Concern compound into a story that we create, that we tell, that we say. But here's the question. What evidence do you have that that story is even going to happen? Where's your evidence? Where's your facts? You're allowing that fad, the fear, anxiety, doubt, dictate, cloud you, and drift you to what I call the dark side. And then there's your story. So now what do we have? Here's your assignment. A thought, your negative feeling. What is a series of paralyzing paradigms? There could be anywhere from 2 to 3 or more. That creates a story that you tell.
So,
okay? Now, as we do that, this is what happens. Okay?
can you say the assignment again?
Yeah. You identify a negative thought. It's maybe one thing. Okay? One little thought that you have. about COVID or about this situation, this circumstance. And then that negative thought begins to what I call, based on your concern, it's a concern compounding. And that negative thought is compounded with a feeling, and then that also then creates the what? The paralyzing paradigm. That paralyzing paradigm, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3. Holy gosh, this is going to crush our business. I'm never going to be able to recoup financially. We'll never be able to provide the same level of service. Students are going to be fearful to come back. How am I going to be able to be the right parent or dad for my kids? My kids are so emotional on the uncertainty and the lack of normal and playfulness. How are they going to break out of this when they're crucial at being in the teenage years right now? And these are all the paralyzing paradigms that are happening. And they're compounding and are compounding based on my concerns and fears and anxiety and doubt. And all of a sudden, we create that 1 or 2 or 3 paradigms, paralyzing paradigms, creates a story that you and I begin to tell ourselves. And I want to identify this potential story that maybe you've been saying. And then when we go back to the exercise, who's telling that story? Well, Darth Paul was telling that story. Maybe it was second best Paul telling that story. Does he or she have any credibility with me? No, I don't like that person. That's not who I am. Where's the evidence? Hasn't happened yet. No. Where are the facts? There are none. Okay? Last exercise. Based upon these exercises here and this story, we're going to do something what I call future pace. And I learned this through Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins. Those who know him, he was one of my first inspirations to getting into the personal development field. And he had shared, based on human psychology, that people will do things based on pain or pleasure. All right. Kevin also did this in his coaching. He's right about here now in our process. And once you identify that story that you're saying based on the compounding of paralyzing paradigms and thoughts and emotions, now I want you to future pace. If you and I were going to allow that Darth Paul to continue to dictate how I think, feel, and act, and allow those paralyzing paradigms to create this story, and I continue to think like that for the next week, month, quarter, for the remainder of 2020, where will that lead me in my future? Now, I believe you and I are going to do or do not do something based on repetition, like in other words, repeating these empowering statements or paralyzing statements in our mind until it's so embedded in our subconscious that it becomes how we're wired.
So Paul asked a quick question.
Go ahead.
Do people get pleasure from giving others pain?
Whew, that's a great question. If, my humble opinion, if they were wired some way, shape, or form to get attention or get acknowledged based on that behavior, then my answer would be probably yes, right?
Or significance.
If they got significance,
They get attention.
connection, attention
Yeah.
based on that behavior, then my guess is that, and they've taken on an identity around that, then I would say yes, right? And now here it is. It's either repetition or there's a traumatic experience. Now, what I'd like to do with this next part of our process is create a traumatic experience in your mind before it actually happens.
Yes, Mark agreed.
I'm going to say that again. What did Mark say?
He just said misery loves company.
Yes. So what we want to do is we want to create a traumatic experience in your mind before it happens. And this is where we're going to take that story and we're going to future pace the pain story. And here are the questions that I want you guys and gals to answer, okay? I want you to imagine, yeah, I got it, that based on your story that you've created, that I want you to future pace if you lived like that for the next month. You allowed that Darth Paul, those paralyzing paradigms, and that story dictate everything that you do, all your action or inaction, what's going to be your future negative result because of that. What will it cost you? Who will you hurt? What didn't you do? What didn't you accomplish? Okay? Everything is lack. I want to cause so much pain based on that story. You're then going to tell me your future paced result based on the story you're telling yourself. Right? If I continue to think like that, we'll have to close our businesses. I'll never be able to, it'll cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I will hurt all the students and future students and staff and people that we're going to inspire to open up more martial art businesses. I didn't accomplish this. I didn't do this. Everything's based on causing pain. Why? Most people, not all, will do more to avoid the pain than to gain pleasure. We'll do more to avoid pain. I want to create so much future-paced pain, the lack of the results, if you continue to allow those voices, those thoughts, those beliefs dictate all your future actions.
So it's going to trigger action so you can get the results that you really want.
Correct.
Based on the fear.
Okay? There's a lot of content. We gave everyone in an hour a shitload of content and assignments if you choose to do this work. I believe so much in this process. I do this all the time. That's what I had to do 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. I had a future piece in my head. If I allowed Darth Paul to dictate all those thoughts, all those paralyzing paradigms, and I had to create a future-paced story of what my life's going to be like over the next 5, 10, 15 years into the future. I believe right now, the things that you and I do or don't do in our business, in our health, in our relationships, is going to dictate the next 5 or 10, 15 years of our life. And those who experienced in 2008 and 2009, Chris and I were both building buildings while martial arts schools were closed. They had to close and shut down. What we did is we built and doubled the size of our buildings. It was decisions that we made that basically brought us over the next 10, 15 years to where we are now.
Now we have to make decisions again.
So it's the same exact process. What you do, how you think, the action or inaction that you take or don't take right now over these next couple of weeks, days, is going to dictate your future and your health, your business, and your relationships. Ultimately, how do you want to be remembered? And in order to do that, you have to become aware. Okay? You've got to become aware. And aware of your thoughts, aware of your feelings, aware of the paralyzing paradigms and stories that potentially could dictate all your action or inaction. Now, for those who do the assignment and email us, for the first 5 people who do it, we're going to get coaching calls with Chris and I. For those of our clients that are already out there, this is also a refresher for you. On our next webinar, which we are going to have, right, but our timeline is going to be different because we have another another session. We have a virtual session for our clients up in Buffalo.
And Rochester.
And Rochester, right, Jamestown, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna host another one of these next Thursday at what, 10?
10 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
10 to 11. And now we're gonna, once this part of the process is done, we're gonna go do the other side of the process. Then we're gonna create an empowering voice. We're gonna dictate empowering thoughts, empowering paradigms, create a whole new story, and we're gonna future pace what that future result is gonna be over the next year, 5 years, 10 years. Complete opposite. This right here, most people don't like to do, but guess what? You gotta do it. Because if you don't focus in on the pain and the possibilities of that, most people don't take action. I am fear-based. I use the fears that I have, and I'm transparent and honest. I coach this stuff, but I experience it. That's why I love coaching. I use the fear to fuel my fire. I use the fear to fuel my fire. Where most people, if they're not aware, that fire is going to burn them. And whatever home you have, your mind, your business, your health, your relationships will be burnt down based on the fear. We're going to open up real quick with the last minute or two for any questions that you have that I could answer. And then we're going to challenge all the people that were watching to do those assignments that will tee you up for next week's session. We're good? Well, it is now 12:02. I think we're pretty good on time. And I want to thank all of you that took the energy and focus to be here with us today. And we are very grateful and humbled to share this process, our specialized knowledge, to impact those who are watching and choosing to be here with us. All right?
All right.
We're really grateful and humble.
All right, if you send us an email, we'll send you a recording or some information on especially the next webinar we have. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, bye-bye.